that would be the case.
For people coming into the country illegally. That's the key distinction.
What I'm saying is that birthright citizenship, as it is currently in law, does not make that distinction between whether that person was born to someone legally or not. So you are saying that even though birthright citizenship for you was something that was in play, you would take it off the table now. And my question is also, how long would that be the case? And also, how would you do it? Would you go to Congress for a constitutional amendment?
Well, actually, I've supported the 28th Amendment to the Constitution. I'll actually go one step further on this, Abby, is that I don't think someone, just because they're born in this country, even if they're a sixth generation American, should automatically enjoy all the privileges of citizenship until they've actually earned it.
I have to stop there, because where do you think that these people will be citizens of? They need to be citizens of somewhere. You think that infants should just be countryless? Okay, but anyway, Vivek sounds like a guy who's literally just throwing everything he can at the wall and seeing what can stick. But he's also targeting high schoolers with his proposals, because he tweeted this. Every high school student should be required to pass the same 128 question civics test required of legal immigrants to become citizens. The fact that this is controversial in America is a damning indictment of our republic's health. See test questions below and try it yourself. Now, I think that we should make the citizenship test easier. I don't think that we should be making it harder and then enforcing it on everybody else. But this is unsurprising as a suggestion coming from the guy who recently said this about education.
Abolish the Department of Education, not because I am anti-education, but because I am pro-education, and the federal government is actually delivering poorer results for our kids. So I would take that money and distribute it to states to fund underfunded school choice programs. But in order to receive that, those states have to abolish teachers' unions. Full stop. If you're a public school teacher and you are unionizing, think about who you're unionizing against. You're unionizing against the public, the kids you're supposed to represent. That's backwards. We're going to fix it. And that allows those public schools to actually compete against those private schools and charter schools that aren't encumbered by those same teachers' unions as handcuffs.
Incidentally, teachers' unions actually protect the students as well as the teachers, because they prevent the teachers from being forced to work in unfair working conditions, which also disadvantages the students. When there's 60 kids in a classroom, you have a teachers union that's going to prevent that from happening. Of course, the student sitting in a classroom of 60 versus 20 kids is going to get a lot worse of an education. But a write-up from Prem Thakur of the New Republic captures how idiotic Vivek sounds in these arguments. So let's take a look at some of this. Surveys in the past have shown that most people would likely fail a basic multiple choice citizenship test. One survey found 36% of respondents actually passing such a test. And given Republicans' all-out assault on public school education, it's unclear what their plan would be to up those numbers. Yet instead of making the citizenship process easier to navigate, Ramaswamy instead wants to make it harder for anyone to be a citizen. More than that, in presidential candidates' formulation lays out tiers of citizenship, a matrix in which until one passes a test, they would be a second-class citizen. And then Thakur closes with this point: while this country already treats scores of people, immigrants, LGBTQ people, laborers, the homeless, and young people as such, Ramaswamy thinks that unfair treatment should be legally bound. And I mean, Mayor, perfect way to put it. He literally wants people to be second-class citizens.
Man said, I don't think people born here, even if they're sixth generation, should be American. What? How, Sway? Like what are you looking for? What is going on other than you're trying to shock the conscience? And this is what Donald Trump created. Donald Trump didn't create crazy. Donald Trump didn't create the racism the racism in this country. Donald Trump didn't create the racism in the Republican Party, but he did create this level of stupid being normalized. Why is this guy on anybody? Why would Abby spend time talking to Vivek at all? He's pointless.
Right, this man will never come even close to being the president of the United States. And thank God for that. Although the rest of the candidates in the Republican field also equally terrible and horrifying. But Mayor, thank you so much for joining me today to break down the news and discuss all of these ridiculous and some of them heart-wrenching stories. Everyone make sure to check out his videos on Rebel HQ as well as my videos. That is all the time we have for today's show, but stick around because the watch list is up next after this.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. It's Friday on the watch list. Glad you guys are here to wrap up the week. Since you guys are here, go ahead. You guys are the punctual folks. You get to see a lot off the top. Please like, subscribe, share that damn stream. Let everybody know what we're doing over here. And in case you're wondering what we're doing over here, let's just start. Watch this real quick.
Everybody get down! Give me all your money! It's got the buckets! Give me all your money! Get down! Where's the money? Give me the money! Where's the money? Everybody give me everything! Where's the money? Give me your money. No money.
There's one way to thwart a robbery is just act like he's not there. Jordan Uhl joins me on the show today. He's a TYT contributor. I'm not sure if he have much experience when it comes to armed robbery, or that would be armed robbery because that was just his arm inside of that jacket. Give me money, give me money, money.
Oh yeah, thankfully no experience. Man, talk about like the least successful robbery of all time. You really got to love the people sitting there just watching unfazed. Just no. All right, just go on. It worked.
There is an actual maybe a way behind this. The guy behind it was a nail salon, by the way. How much you getting from a nail salon? I don't know. Maybe it was a bad target in the first place. But the man behind the counter sat back and acted like he didn't understand any words he was saying. Bottom right corner. He's like, "What? What is money? Give me? What does that mean?" And he's like, "Okay." There was a moment when he stood in the middle of the opening, the lobby here, and just stood and said, "What do I do now? Nobody's talking to me." He's just right there. He's like, "Okay, what do I do?" And then one more time when he walks out, he's like, "You got money, right?" He goes, "No, get the hell out of here." Yo, way back in the day, way back for you guys old school TYT watchers, Wes Clark Jr. used to be on the show a lot, and he once told us a story of someone who did the same thing. It was a bar, and he said, "This is how you avoid armed robberies." And by the way, don't do this, but it's exactly what they did. He said he walked in, the guy was screaming. He actually did have a gun, rolled in screaming, and Wes just stood up and walked away as if out the door, as if it was just a calm, someone walked in and ordered a beer and he's like, "I'm done here." And the guy's like, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" He didn't say anything, he just kept walking. Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's the way to do it. We teach you guys things here on the watch list. Hopefully these things can be useful one day, but hopefully it won't be because no one wants to be in that situation. Jordan, let's get to the action news. How about that? I always enjoy these starters, but now we're gonna go ahead and go to a little bit of the main course. I'm not sure if you guys have been hearing about this. I heard about it a couple days ago, specifically because they said not enough people were talking about the danger involved in this interaction that went down in Washington, D.C. Let's start.
Somewhere down this road, so there's a few entrances that we can reach them. And so down here, it's a nice entrance point. But that's it. That's as far as you can get with the First Amendment. Get it? To Tony Podesta's house. And John Podesta. And we didn't get an interview. But that's a start, right? I control the block. We got him surrounded. That's what you say. Oh, is it intimidating? I don't think so. Was she intimidated? She didn't look intimidated.
There you see the live stream of an unhinged and potentially violent, potentially terrorist. They're casing the neighborhood. As you heard, he mentioned Tony Podesta, John Podesta, of course, former chief of staff from Clinton and also advisors to the last couple of Democratic presidents in the neighborhood. Talking about we got the place surrounded. That's what you say, at least. Am I intimidating? But you know what? I don't think the Podestas was actually his solo and only target there. In fact, he went deeper when he was searching out this house.
What's going on? I'm outside Barack Obama's house, and there was this bag here with all this stuff in it. So I'm recovering what I can off of it and establishing a report with that lady over there at Secret Service. She can hear everything I'm saying. It's totally fine. I know what I'm up to. I'm a professional. So what you do, because we don't know if they're coming back or not, but we're gonna assume that some of it's abandoned and some of it's not, because someone might need these clothes. So we're gonna check these bags. Yeah, they got me surrounded now. So I gotta grab what I gotta grab and get the out of here. Put this back. This just looks empty. Got me surrounded, so I gotta keep moving. I gotta move now because people are coming. So I'll leave that Bible for a sojourner that comes after me. Gotta keep going because now they're coming.
As he mentioned, now they're coming. You hear some distant sirens in the out past where he is, because Taylor Taranto, who is known, I guess, by the FBI and also local law enforcement, was finally arrested. CBS News actually has details of who this guy is, because this isn't his only ridiculous criminal move that he's pulled off. Let's watch what they pointed out about him. This is crazy.
There's new information on the January 6th defendant arrested near the home of former President Barack Obama here in D.C.
After federal agents spotted and chased Taylor Taranto outside the D.C. home of former President Obama, they say they found these guns, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and a machete in Taranto's van parked nearby. The feds had already been trying to arrest Taranto for allegedly being part of the mob that attacked the Capitol January 6th, for which he faces 4 misdemeanor charges. Late today, federal prosecutors told a judge Taranto could have learned Obama's address from a social media post by former President Trump. They alleged Trump posted what he claimed was Obama's address on his Truth Social platform, the same day Taranto was arrested near the home.
There's a lot going on here. Okay, so quick recap here. Taranto apparently learned of Obama's address from a Truth Social post. That's what they're assuming based off of the timing of this, from Trump posting it out there. Who knew exactly if it was real? Maybe it was. But also, he was also already wanted. They were looking for him for his connections and being part of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And also, his van was packed with all those weapons, tons of ammunition, multiple weapons. What was he doing there is the question. But there's one more thing, Jordan, before I let you respond to all this. Graphic 1 here, you guys. A prosecutor said that Taranto and his associates entered an elementary school in Tacoma Park, Maryland, outside of Washington on June 18th. The rest of this happened around June 27th, 28th, I believe. Taranto streamed their procession through the building. The video depicted Taranto and his associates walking around the school, entering the gymnasium, and using a projector to display a film related to January 6th. I have no idea how this kind of access he got. But also, when he was doing that, he stated that he specifically chose that elementary school due to its proximity to Congressman Raskin's home, and that he's targeting Raskin because he's one of the guys that hates January 6 people, or more like Trump supporters. And it's kind of like sending a shockwave through him because I did nothing wrong, is what prosecutors quoted Taranto as saying, Jordan. So, okay, there's a lot we just threw at your lap here, but this is apparently something that is still ongoing with his with what they're going through with court proceedings, but he's just casing the joint with guns. What's the next step here?
I mean, thankfully there wasn't any next step for him. He was finally caught after repeated trespassing and obviously in involvement with January 6th. Like, it could have gotten a lot worse. Who knows who else in that neighborhood could have gotten hurt? This guy doesn't seem really tethered to reality. Seems like a conspiracy theorist and someone who listens to and internalizes everything Trump says. Just look at the results. Look at how listening to Trump and hanging on his every word, look at where that gets you. You're involved in January 6th, you're breaking into an elementary school, and you're arrested for showing up with a stockpile that rivals a small army outside of a former president's home. And the people he was naming, the Podestas, I mean, that goes back to like the Pizzagate conspiracy.
Yeah.
What do you have against that? Like, they're boring, kind of like DC swamp creatures. They have no real power anymore. They have some influence, sure, but that goes back to another conspiracy theory. So this is someone who has just been believing everything he reads and hears and sees on the internet for years. And this is where he ends up. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I think at one point they mentioned he was an Iraq veteran, war veteran there, and maybe he's got some issues. I think they've mentioned PTSD potentially from that. This is one of those cases where then if you go, well, you know, he's just kind of unhinged and mental health, maybe he's not getting his the proper care that he needs from it. But this is why you don't say and do random things like incite your supporters to violence or think that, oh, political opponents mean they're demons and they're Satan, they're coming for your children. Because then people go off the rails and say, I need to do something about this because they're telling me things that I didn't know about and they must be connected and know what's going on. So let me show up at a former president's house from an opposing political party with guns and tons of ammo. Now, you would think maybe this guy's gonna hang out in jail for a while, but really fast because this is still the American judicial system, that one. Let's go to graphic 4 because the judge is trying to figure out whether or not, you guys saw that cased the joint multiple times, was in the vicinity. Who knows if he actually had access to it, but he was definitely looking for it. But graphic 4 points out what's happening now with these court proceedings, which makes it even worse. Farquhar, who was the magistrate judge overseeing this case, indicated on Thursday that he's still not certain how he will rule on the prosecutor's request to keep Taranto locked up. There's a potential risk of flight, is what he said, but he had to decide whether it was serious enough to detain him. He said, I'm just really concerned right now about the flight risk, adding later that he was exploring a couple of options for Taranto to be released into the custody of a third party until his trial. Because someone who's potentially a terrorist coming after former presidents and threatening in his live stream videos and showing up at elementary schools because they're close to another political opponent of his because he's all on Donald Trump's ass. All of that is happening, and we're trying to decide whether or not he's gonna stay in jail until trial. How many other people with, I guess it's an opinion-based thing, but far less lethal type of crimes are hanging out in jail? Maybe theft, and then sit there and rot because there's no trial coming. But now they're like, oh, we have to let him go. We can't keep him here. We can't do that at all because he's not really a flight risk. He doesn't believe in the United States democracy. He showed up on January 6th.
Yeah, this is somebody who doesn't have regard for the law as is. If they tell him, okay, you're released on bond, who's to say he's going to, respect that? Who's to say he's going to show up for his next court proceeding? Who's to say he's not going to try to leave or just disappear? These people have just blatant disregard for any attempt at organizing or structuring our society in a reasonable way. Why would he care? It's a bizarre decision. And to your point, there are people who have done way less who are stuck in jail because they can't afford bail. Yeah. So part of that problem overall is the cash bail system and the disproportionate allocation that often falls along racial or class lines. But this is somebody who just seems like it's simple. It's obvious. Why would you let this guy go? That's 100%. Why I'm not a judge, I guess.
It was this former president who said once, there's this program there that's called Catch and Release. It's catch and release. Who would have think of it? Apparently, it's apparently in this case as well. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, Jordan. We're seeing a lot of political hatred towards many folks in the LGBTQ plus community, but sometimes there's fractures within these battles and fights because of one Ron DeSantis. It's crazy how he's doing something, even though it doesn't seem like it's much. He's causing issues starting with this.
Yeah, look, I think, identifying Donald Trump as really being a pioneer in injecting gender ideology into the mainstream where he was having men compete against women in his beauty pageants. I think that's totally fair game because he's now campaigning saying the opposite, that he doesn't think that you should have men competing in women's things like athletics.
And for more, I want to bring in Charles Moran. He's the president of the Log Cabin Republicans here with me in the studio. These are DeSantis's first comments on this video. What do you make of his reaction?
Well, just hearing his opening words talking about injecting gender ideology into the debate, the opening lines of that ad that his campaign retweeted have President Trump addressing the nation after the Pulse nightclub shooting. I don't know how addressing a national tragedy just miles from Governor DeSantis' then congressional district is injecting gender ideology. Look, it's very clear, and we're seeing it from across the conservative spectrum. Everyone agrees that this ad was misdirected, it was misplanned, and it was not setting the right tone.
There's Charles Moran, president or head of the Log Cabin Republicans, and he's on Ron DeSantis over that ad that we were talking about last week. That was, let's keep it real, it's pretty horrific in the way they talk. It's causing some divisions because this is where I'm confused. Again, the head of the Log Cabin Republicans is trying to figure out how it is that a Republican is actually hating and putting out homophobic ads. That's their brand, bro. There's some more recap of what is that was going on.
I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens.
If Caitlyn Jenner were to walk into Trump Tower and want to use the bathroom, you would be fine with her using any bathroom she chooses.
That is correct.
In the future, can transgender women compete in Miss Universe?
Yes.
Make America great again.
Psych!
Resistance.
Congratulations, Ron DeSantis. Mission accomplished. You win.
So that's the ad that ruffled a bunch of feathers, including from Charles Moran here that was on CNN talking about it. But the fractures have begun because anybody that's connected now with Ron DeSantis, who again is running for president, is now finding themselves being called homophobic within the Republican Party. I'm completely confused, but let's let him keep talking. Maybe he can clear this up.
Governor DeSantis' ad paints a very broad stroke, going after people like Caitlyn Jenner, people going after a drag queen named Lady Maga. These are not the problems that the conservative movement has typically been focused on, that a lot of the Republicans are focused on. This ad was so misdirected towards what the real threat is, and the response from Governor DeSantis there was a total sidestep. He didn't address it. He didn't even address some of the most important things that were in that video, and he missed an opportunity of something that brings all Americans together, definitely conservatives, around protecting women's sports, protecting women's spaces, preventing gender transition, permanent gender transition below the age of 18.
Those are the things we care about, not everything else that you're actually saying that we shouldn't exist and how dare we have any rights in this country. Who has been saying that from the Republican side? I have no idea, Jordan, but he's totally confused. But the good news is these fractures have begun and there's more coming from another group. But first, the log cabin Republicans' departure.
I mean, there's no real sympathy for them. They should know, and I think deep down they do know what that party is and what that party represents. We've seen attacks from Republican presidential candidates, Republican members of Congress, Republican Supreme Court justices on LGBTQI plus equity for years. Mitt Romney, is part of his platform, had a plank in his campaign that he was calling for a constitutional amendment to codify marriages between one man and one woman nationwide. And this is after some states had legalized it, but some hadn't, and we didn't have Obergefell until a couple more years. Granted, he lost, and thankfully he lost, and now we're seeing a point where, yes, there is some bipartisan support for marriage equality in Congress, but generally, and especially at the top levels of the Republican Party, they are happy to use the LGBTQI plus community for cannon fodder. They're happy to throw them under the bus because it divides and it pits people against one another, and that's how they campaign. They want people to humiliate and ridicule marginalized communities, people who are politically powerless, and that is how they campaign and build a base. That this person pretends like he can't see that and has an organization to run cover for the Republicans, no sympathy.
It's crazy because there's others that run cover, and this is where some of the fractures come from. There's a group called Gays Against Groomers. Gays Against Groomers, because they're going off of that thought process from this one party who says anybody that's within the community is a groomer. But still, I guess they have to fight that fight. But now, Caitlyn Jenner, who they also mentioned because she appeared in that ad there, now she's had it with anyone associated with Ron DeSantis as well. This is what's going on because David Leatherwood was a part of this conversation back and forth on Twitter. He says there's a major difference between regular gay people, this is back on July 2nd, who love America and alphabet extremists who push radical woke ideology. Clearly Ron DeSantis doesn't understand the difference. Thank God Trump does. There's some differences apparently. Caitlyn Jenner jumped on it. She said, I simply cannot be affiliated with Against Groomers, which is the handle for that particular group. Despite the work they do, I 99% support, because Jamie, I guess the head of it, essentially begging my organization to co-brand, amplify, and pay for 50% of the Pride Month ad, the leader being on payroll for DeSantis and so vitriolically anti-Trump. She should step down. So there's battles lines. Caitlyn Jenner doesn't like anyone associated with Ron DeSantis because of the way his approach, specifically with that ad. Now, more of the irony, he's pushing that kind of ad because he needs to find some kind of separation from Donald Trump, because remember, his whole political life nationally is about being a baby Trump. Now he's got to find something to separate himself, and bro, it's not working. There's more, because Caitlyn also said this. She says, not the draft that you sent my team, some highly relevant omitted information. You think you can't play it both ways. Because now look, David Leatherwood is talking about his departure from GAG is directly related to the founder's outspoken support for DeSantis in light of his recent ad that is extremely anti-gay. He goes on to talk about how he actually respects people and their opinions because none of that means anything because they have to find some small division lines. Because I'm still trying to figure out what is about DeSantis' ad. They explained it, but what it is about DeSantis' ad that offended them when everything else they say is very similar to that ad and they weren't offended. Or maybe they are and it's all within their own smaller circles and these meetings that they have and maybe they're trying to find some kind of lane here. Or they just know that this is one good way to separate themselves from Ron DeSantis because he doesn't appear to be doing all that well. You got last thoughts, Jordan?
I think it shows the problem DeSantis is going to have when he gets closer and closer to the primaries. He wants to make his campaign about culture war issues. He wants to make his campaign about, attacking the LGBTQI plus community, doing things like book bans. All of those things aren't really going to play well because you even have some people who are Republican, I guess, who don't like it. And it doesn't really affect people's material needs. At the end of the day, that's just going to help, I guess. On social, you're going to rile up some part of your base, but they're not really going to be as motivated as somebody like Trump or maybe another candidate who can come in, talk about issues that's going to help them pay the bills, help people survive, help people keep food on the table, which is really what motivates a lot of voters. So with the loss of abortion as like the driving factor for single issue voters, this isn't going to be as an effective replacement. It's just going to rile up the crazies. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of real world consequences.
Maybe what they're trying to say is, Ron, you're supposed to do this for the fringe voters. Maybe they will vote, maybe they will. But also, once we get to the general, we have to start appealing to regular Americans because this is all craziness. Don't you know the game? Apparently, he's still learning it. Let's take this first break there, you guys. A couple of your comments when we get back. But also, after that, there's another DeSantis on the campaign trail. Is it the baby? Oh, I think it's his wife. This is gonna be a major problem, I think, because look, Donald Trump likes going after folks' wives. We've seen that before. But Casey DeSantis is on the campaign trail. Let's see what she's doing when we get back.
Our TYT audience has been building this show and this network with us for 20 years. Now we're expanding and connecting our audience around the world in even more exciting and powerful ways. Look, I don't want you to miss another petition, poll, community conversation, or TYT segment. Connect with informed, passionate, and compassionate progressives, and even new progressives. They're joining our movement every day. This is gonna be amazing when we work together. So our community members are learning together, they're building lifelong relationships, and even politically organizing together. Here's what Power Slave Wolf has to say as they begin interacting with our community after making TYT their #1 trusted news source. Quote, I've been a TYT viewer since the Obama years and have since found them to be a far more trustworthy news source than most TV news outlets. Away from viewing TYT, I'm a musician, electric bass guitar, sim racer, satire enthusiast, and rollerblader, the latter being my main means of intense exercise. TYT, my local news, none of the stations in my area are Sinclair owned as far as I know, and comedy style news shows are my trusted news sources. The former and the latter both having something in common in that both have something that TV news sorely lacks, a very low tolerance for BS. So sign up for free at tyt.com/community. We're making it easier to connect, stay informed, and even take action.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Back on the watch list, you guys. Jayar Jackson here. Of course, Jordan Uhl is my guest today. Let's see what you guys are talking about over there. Over on Twitch, Ghost Dog TV apparently has more information than I do. They say, happy birthday, Jordan. Well, damn it. Oh, I think they got their information on.
You're a few weeks off. I'm not. It's later this month.
I guess this is the first opportunity because they're not sure if you'll be back in time on the show to wish. It's happy prelated birthday. I don't know the term. I'm always on the belated side because I forget. Dissident PM says, yeah, you forgot you vote for the leopards eating faces party, and you don't get to act surprised when leopards start eating your face. 100%, it keeps happening. Also, man, Dissident PM, you are on a roll. Says, wow, there's still log cabin Republicans apparently, but looks like those numbers might be dwindling. By the way, that one group, Groomers against, or Gays Against Groomers, whichever one they said, they've lost 22 members after the whole Caitlyn Jenner fallout thing. So they're shedding members like crazy. Lastly, before we get to more stories, Crystal Sheets, AKA John's coiffed hair dragon, because he's growing it out, says he's a professional in the same way the armed robber in the first clip was a professional robber. I think we're talking about the profession of Ron DeSantis being really good at running for president, which, by the way, leads us straight to this next story, because Ron DeSantis is not in this particular campaign. Casey is. Let's go.
In America, we've witnessed a lot and put up with enough. When you come after our kids, we fight back, because there's nothing we won't do to protect our children. They're not yours. We will not allow you to exploit their innocence to advance your agenda. We are no longer silent. We are united, and we have finally found our fighter.
But winning the fight in Florida is just the beginning. We must protect parents' rights and the innocence of our children. We must restore sanity in our society. We need every mama and every grandmama in every corner of the country to stand up and fight back by electing Ron DeSantis president of the United States of America. Join us by texting mamas to 512345.
What is it about politicians starting to call people mamas only when they're trying to sound like they're connected to women and mothers? Like, oh, you call them moms. Anyway, fine, whatever. It's just a small thing for me. Join mamas and grandmamas, because we're down to earth. Either way it goes, you saw there Casey DeSantis, Ron DeSantis' wife there, releasing, I guess, not her own ad. Someone else made it, but she's definitely featured on it. And again, talking about how these evil people are coming for your children. We're not gonna be silent about you attacking and taking over our world as we take away your rights and make sure that you don't have anything to live off of here in this country. Folks are giving the DeSantis folks problems over this, because why is Casey now the front and center situation, considering how much we're talking about Ron DeSantis fumbling the ball every time he gets his face up there? Matter of fact, a pro-Trump group made a bit of a comedic video to highlight this low energy from Ron. Watch.
My wife is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
Paid for by the committee to elect Jill DeSantis.
Please clap.
I guess they're going with the low energy approach there. But it's a little bit of the strategy that's happening with putting Casey out there, which, by the way, I think is pretty normal. I feel like presidential candidates' wives are always a big part of their campaign, especially if they're actually elected. Definitely, they put them front and center. They want to show this whole family situation. So I didn't see it as that odd, but apparently a lot of other folks did. Let's jump down to graphic 3 here, you guys, because this is what people are then mentioning over at the Daily Mail. They said Casey DeSantis hits the campaign trail without Ron, all capitals. Florida's first lady will launch the Mamas for DeSantis at first solo event in Iowa that's upcoming, so she can help him close that gap with Trump, which I'm not even sure what it even is at anymore. But they got images all over about her carrying children on her back and old veterans kissing her on the cheek. She is a woman of the people. Let's look at those images, you guys. The next graphic down here. Because she's going solo. I'm not sure if Ron is behind her, if he's off camera, or if he's just letting her roll with it. Because also, what they also mentioned over the Daily Beast was Casey DeSantis is the Walmart Melania. Damn. I'm no fan of the DeSantises, but man, you send your wife out to campaign for you, and this is the response she gets. Man, I don't think she's gonna go back out. What's your thoughts here, Jordan?
I think what they're trying to do here is contrast the DeSantis campaign with the Trump campaign, and namely that Melania really hasn't been seen much. And even when she was first lady, she wasn't as approachable, she wasn't as out front. in the few times that she did make news, it was always for something bad. Like when she wore that jacket that said, "I really don't care, do you?" as she was going to some migrant detention facility or going to the border. The really creepy or Christmas decorations, they looked like Halloween decorations. And then I think the call or the transcript that came out about her being worried about Trump's various crimes. I mean, that's really what people remember her for. And since their departure from the White House, she hasn't been seen. She doesn't go with him on his multiple trips to be indicted across like all over the country. She's not out front. She's not at these events. It's weird. That is weird, right? So what they're trying to do is put her out front, say, hey, look, we're a healthy family. They're clearly not. And also, Ron DeSantis is really awkward and weird. He's been getting ridiculed by the press, by pundits, by people online for months now about his weird mannerisms, his facial reactions, just how stiff he is, how unnatural he feels and looks. She does seem a bit more approachable, a bit more normal. Granted, her politics suck. She's just as terrible as him, it seems. But to them, to Republican voters who don't care about that kind of stuff, she's a little bit more approachable and she's actually present.
Can I ask you really fast, Jordan? What is it you think it's possible for Ron DeSantis to do? Because they're trying all these different things to get some kind of traction. I'm just curious because I've thought about this and I don't really know.
I mean, just talk about the issues. Have you heard him talk about anything other than, woke ideology, the woke mob, the LGBTQI plus community, books in schools, Disney? Talk about one single issue. Talk about healthcare. People care about healthcare no matter which political party they are. Some people want different approaches, some people want different systems, but does he talk about it? Was he talking about taxes? Was he talking about, has he talked about foreign policy? No, his main brand is being the anti-woke guy. That's not going to work. To go back to our last segment before break, you run to, in that primary, you run as far to the right as possible, and then in the general, you run to the middle. He's gonna have an impossible task trying to distance himself from all of his primary rhetoric, attacking all of these marginalized groups, attacking things like Disney and LGBTQI plus communities and issues in the general, because a vast majority of people are on our side on that issue. You're not gonna win swing voters by berating, attacking, ridiculing members of the LGBTQI plus community, because we're at a point now where every single person in the country, for the most part, knows somebody in that community. And that's gonna be a tough sell for a voting message. It's just not gonna work.
Yeah, we'll see if he has to get out of the primaries first. It's a big problem for him. Let's head over to New York, though, you guys. The mayor of New York has a bit of a story. Maybe it's a reoccurring story, but it's definitely a touching one. We'll look into it. Let's watch this.
I go back to the days of thinking of Robert Venable, my close colleague, who died in the line of duty. I still think about Robert. I keep a picture of Robert in my wallet. I reached into my pocket and I pulled out this photo. This photo is Robert Venable. He was one of my closest friends when I was a transit police officer.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams talks about his murdered friend from 30 years ago. And he holds a picture, as you saw in the last part of the clip there, of his friend, Mr. Venable, and how he misses him and he keeps it on him. Well, it's a very simple, touching story, and it's understandable. I'm sure many people do the same. I lost a friend just last year, and it's crazy. But the thing is people start looking a little deeper and they wonder, there's a photo? They looked and they found this. Employees, by the way, of Eric Adams, allegedly, were instructed to create a photo of Officer Venable, according to a person familiar with this request. A picture of the officer was found on Google. It was printed in black and white and made to look worn, as if the mayor had been carrying it for some time, including by splashing some coffee on it. That's what the person said, who spoke on the condition of anonymity out of fear of retribution. Now, Eric, there's the image of the photo there along with some cash behind it. But after Adams first told the story about keeping that photo, the New York Times asked to see it. And maybe there was a moment where he's like, man, where is it? And then again, allegedly, according to these folks who are speaking anonymously, coffee was splashed on it, wrinkle it up, print it out, put it in my wallet so I can make sure I continue along with the story. But then he posed with it in front of the New York Times with it, and he was bringing up these other things at these press conferences, as you then saw. But then why? Because again, people start wondering, so how much is this story means something versus the picture that he's always showing folks. By the way, there's more here from Politico. They said this is not the first time Adams has been accused of fabrication, though. The mayor's claimed to be a vegan, but Politico noted last year that Adams frequently eats fish. He was a pescatarian, maybe that. During his mayoral campaign, some in the media questioned whether Adams actually lived in New York State or if he resided in a condo he owned in Jersey, as some of his tax documents also stated. He explained the discrepancy by blaming the error on an incorrect decision by his accountant, who he said was living in a homeless shelter at the time. Man, that's a great accountant, by the way. He's still working for you, which may have caused him to make some bad decisions. So there's lots I guess, reasons why people question some of the stories that Mayor Adams tells. And this one appears to be another one where maybe there's folks working for him that don't like him very much. Who knows how much that's made up or how much this is an actual photo they put together, or whether or not he really keeps it in his wallet for this long. But by the way, Jordan, in my opinion, it doesn't even matter if he keeps a photo of his buddy from 30 years ago in his wallet. Because it's real, by the way. They end up investigating it to actually see if he knew that officer, which he did. Family of that officer said so. His family said so. And it's actually pretty frustrating for them to even have to go through all of this. But then again, just say that's your buddy. It doesn't have to be like, and therefore his picture is right next to my heart. I don't know.
Yeah, these types of stunts are so weird. And it shows the hollowness and kayfabe in politics. It's really frustrating. But Adams has bigger issues on his plate today. You know, he's obviously a crook. He's obviously a liar. Like you could say that about most politicians. But today there was indictments announced for several people who were all running a straw donor scheme to run money to Eric Adams' campaign. And in the indictment document, it was said that Adams says he won't do anything, whatever reason they were trying to run money to him, whatever interest group they were representing, he wouldn't do anything for less than $25,000. So I mean,
heard about this.
It just happened today, and it's emblematic of somebody who lies and schemes their way into politics, into positions of power, and this is how they use that power. It's, hey, you run money into my campaign, you get a little kickback. So I think that's the story we really need to be talking about.
Man, and the fake photo maybe leads into that, or the potential fake photo leads into that specifically. But there's one other small side note. If coffee was spilled on it to make it look worn and wrinkled up, doesn't that kind of degrade the nature of like this very touching photo that you keep? You're dropping coffee. Like if that's supposed to be like, if they go, oh man, there's a brown corners to it. Yeah, I spilled my coffee on that 20 years ago. Decided to keep it rolling.
I care about it so much. I care about it so much. I just leave it laying around next to hot beverages.
Sorry, it's weird. Maybe it's because I like the way he talks. But Eric Adams, man, I'm always willing to listen to him speak. I don't know about his scandals, but I don't know. He's not my mayor. Let's go ahead and jump to this next story, though, you guys. This is what I've been wanting to talk about all day, Jordan. Let's go here. This is crazy.
Who did?
An extremely tall gentleman there's newly #1 NBA pick Victor Wembanyama, and that woman that's dressed like Britney Spears is Britney Spears. She rolled up behind Victor Wembanyama out in Vegas. I think she does a show there, but also Victor is there for the summer league since he just got drafted to the NBA. And as she rolled up behind him, tapped him on his back or shoulder, there was an assault that happened. You see her grabbing her face there, from which you could tell, and everything fell apart from there. So the kid, I think he's like 19 years old. Suddenly, before he even plays in his first summer league game, dude is part of a controversy because Britney is quite upset about the assault. Let's see what Victor had to say about it, because of course they asked him as if he had something to do with it. Let's watch.
So yeah, there was something did happen a little bit, and there was one person who was calling me, but we talked before with the security, don't stop because it's gonna make a crowd. So I couldn't stop. So that person was calling me, sir, and that person grabbed me from behind. So I didn't see what happened because I was walking straight and we told don't stop. But that person grabbed me from behind, not on my shoulder. She grabbed me from behind, and so I just know that the security pushed her away. don't know with how much force though, but and the security of this person told me it was Britney Spears. So I was like, no, you're joking, but yeah, it turns out it was Britney Spears. I know.
So Victor mentioning how someone touched him on his back. He had no idea who it was. They were told him to keep moving in case you guys couldn't fully understand him. He's French. But as he kept moving, he didn't know who it was. Found out a couple hours later. But he said there was a tap on the back or something. Britney has a different part of this story though. She says, I recognized an athlete. Didn't even mention his name specifically in this part of it. She goes, I recognized an athlete. We just lost a whole bunch of you guys. As I was heading to dinner, I decided to approach him and congratulate him on his success. It was really loud, so I tapped him on the shoulder to get his attention. I'm aware of the player's statement where he mentions I grabbed him from behind, but I simply tapped him on the shoulder. His security then backhanded me in the face without looking back in front of a crowd. So that was definitely a part of it. It's not back, you guys, yet. But then as she then had to go through all this, more and more people were piling on talking about it. It's garnered all kinds of attention because look, Britney Spears and Victor Wembanyama are now in this beef when neither one of them really was looking for it in the first place. She also said she was embarrassed by this whole matter, graphic too. She goes, I also don't appreciate, nor do I think this is a laughing matter. Watching the player smile and laugh was cruel and demoralizing with the situation that took place. I'm 5'3" and he's 7'4". But there's one more eyewitness video, Jordan, before you jump in here, who spoke with TMZ because they somehow find anybody at any moment to talk about things that they said. And there's some extra details this guy's got. Watch.
Wemby was walking into the area heading to catch when there was a fan who afterwards we found out was Britney Spears was approaching him with a British accent. Saying, excuse me, sir, and just kept trying to go towards him. When eventually he was heading, when Wemby and his entourage were heading into the restaurant where into catch, that's when Britney sort of infiltrated her way into this circle, and one of his bodyguards gave her like a backhand slap across the face.
And you saw her sunglasses fly off.
They flew off, yes.
So it's pretty violent enough hit for sunglasses to fly off. And again, I think she was looking to at least have some kind of retribution for this. But I think the police said that they reviewed the footage, Jordan, and no charges will be filed. I'm not sure if you're like part of a security team, you can just hit folks because they made contact. I don't know. I would think so.
I mean, I would hope not. I just don't want that to be I don't want immunity for personal security guards. Like you should still be bound by the same laws as everybody else. It's just a messy situation. They obviously didn't know who she was, but they also definitely shouldn't have hit her. Just like, it's one of those stories that's really frustrating to see hashed out in the media, because I'm sure if they all of them just kind of huddled or gotten a call, it'd be fine. But instead we're learning about it through their spokespeople, through outlets like TMZ and eyewitnesses. And that's only guaranteed to make things worse. Like I'm certain if they all just met up, if they're all still in Vegas, they all just met up and talked it out, had dinner together, everything would be fine. And maybe that would lead to a long, fruitful friendship.
Maybe, and the thing is, she's a fan, just a fan. What if she's Britney Spears who never got famous and she's hanging out in Vegas and she's just this girl from Louisiana, right? And then it all goes down. If you're a nobody, it should still be something where you at least shouldn't be slapped in the face, glasses get knocked off. But I like the investigations into the British accent, allegedly by that particular eyewitness. I'm not sure what he heard. That was odd. He's French, not British, you guys. She doesn't have to give that kind of accent, or maybe she's got one now. Who knows? But by the way, can you imagine because Victor Wembanyama is playing for the Spurs, of course, probably even tonight, and as he goes into his NBA career, if this follows him around, people are gonna have Britney faces in the stands, bouncing them back and forth when he's shooting free throws, anything to distract him. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll do that myself.
They'll play "Hit Me, Baby" one more time when he's at the free throw line.
Oh. It'll be perfect. Hey, he's in the Western Conference. He will be playing the Clippers. Maybe I'll show up at that game. You'll see him with a big Britney face right behind the basket. It'll be awesome. I'm actually thinking about doing it. Let's go to this next story, though, you guys. Up in San Francisco, from New York to Vegas to San Francisco. It's very much a San Francisco type of problem with these automated cars that not nobody, but many people don't want around. Let's watch.
So what's the deal with the self-driving cars all over SF? These companies promise their cars will reduce traffic and collisions. But instead, they block buses, emergency vehicles, and everyday traffic. They've even unalived a person and a dog. And they're partnering with police to report everyone all the time without anyone's consent. And most importantly, they require streets that are designed for cars, not people or transit. They exist only for profit-driven car companies to stay dominant and make it harder for transit to stay afloat. But we can do something about it. First, find a cone. They're everywhere. Then gently place it on the car's hood. Make sure their car is empty. And repeat. It's really fun and anyone can do it. Thursday, July 13th, there's a state hearing for these companies to expand operations in SF. Hell no, we do not consent to this.
The kinds of fights had up in San Francisco, dropping cones on the hoods of these AI-driven cars, not AI-driven cars, but at least driverless cars happening around, and there's lots of issues. They're stopping the middle of the roads, they're bumping into people, running folks over, causing traffic jams. Look, about to run up in some construction zones. Who's driving these damn things? Apparently there's a way to stop it. And I don't know why, but that damn cone putting on the hood is just over. But I'm sorry that it's gonna cause it to sit there right where we don't want it. There's a movement, it's called the Week of the Cone. So at least it's only for 1 week. And it's orchestrated by Safe Street Rebel and their cone campaign. So this week, the cone, as this group is calling this now viral prank on Twitter and TikTok, is a form of protest against the spread of robo-taxi services in that city, as you heard. And appears to be getting traction with residents who are sick of these vehicles malfunctioning and doing all those ridiculous things in traffic. And it comes as this lead up week to see Waymo and Cruise expand their robo-taxi services. Now, of course, what else is gonna do is get rid of real taxi drivers, maybe even those Waze and Uber drivers who, or we now see everywhere as well. You got some driverless cars. I had mentioned it before how they were doing this, but then now who knew that a cone on the hood of a car would do such a thing. There's other things happening from the Tesla side of things, which I'm definitely prepared to talk about in a second. But Jordan, so I don't know. I haven't seen, maybe it's San Francisco where all these things are getting started with tech up there, but I haven't seen any of these cars down here, and I would expect it pretty soon. I have seen those robots on the sidewalk that are delivering people's food, which may get jacked at any moment in Los Angeles. First thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco is kind of the playground for this kind of stuff. It's where the companies are. That's where they're going to test everything. And if residents hate it, like I understand it. They're oversaturated with these types of companies, and it's blocking their roads. It's getting in the way. The one in that clip, you can see a car is parked in a crosswalk. That's really annoying. It's annoying when a human does it. It's especially annoying when a tech company's project does it. So I love this campaign so long as those cars don't get in the way any further. I hate that these types of technologies, as we've seen, especially with Tesla, any auto driving stuff is incredibly dangerous. We're just not there yet. I guess it's okay to think about in the future if we have reliable and safe and proven technology. We just don't yet. And testing that on streets where people are walking or riding their bikes or emergency vehicles are trying to get through, no, that's just a non-starter for me.
Maybe there's some kind of way they can have somebody in some other office that can control it once it is jammed or once it makes a stop or once it does something that it doesn't need to do. But that'd be thinking too far ahead. There are some of the folks, you mentioned those Tesla drivers, and they are thinking a little bit further ahead. Let's watch some of the things that happen with the automated systems, the automated driving systems that require you to keep your hands on the steering wheel on a Tesla. They found a workaround. Watch this. It's a little bit of a demonstration video for these steering wheel weights so that Tesla drivers can keep their hands off the steering wheel while their automated autopilot systems work, because who wants to be bugged with putting your hand on a steering wheel while you're driving, bro? This is like cars and stuff, man. By the way, so Washington Post pointed out that these Tesla owners are using the steering wheel weights to drive hands free. Now, that ad got very exciting once the steering wheel weight was put on and he was going like 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm not sure if that's the best way to approach this whole thing, but people have been buying these third market. It's nothing that like Tesla's offer necessarily, throwing it out with an extra steering wheel weight so you can get into yourself in some accidents. People are buying these on like eBay and Amazon. And by the way, Amazon has decided to stop selling them because check this out. These weights have become a popular commodity as Tesla has expanded its full self-driving technology from around 12,000 vehicles to more than 400,000 over the past year. These electric car manufacturers adopted measures to discourage their use, they say, but these devices have been involved in at least 2 recent traffic incidents, and there's the ad. It's still apparently popping up on eBay. I looked at some of the comments, Jordan, when people were I think it was Reddit, because I was curious what people who were actually maybe buying these things were talking about, and it was a comment section. They were arguing, because that's what happens. And many of these Tesla drivers were like, yo, this isn't lazy. The autopilot system's there for a reason. But again, to your point earlier about those automated cars, we're not there yet, bro. Like, we're almost there, but we're not there yet. And I probably never will use it because I'm an old man.
Yeah, it's terrible pileup in San Francisco last year that companies like Tesla and other people try to cover up and say it wasn't auto self-driving technology that caused it. Tesla has repeatedly tried to blame drivers and Tesla owners for crashes when it was really autopilot and self-driving. It's just not there yet. We have data, we have stories, and we have reports time and time again. They're under investigation for this kind of stuff. It's just, we have all these signs. This isn't there yet. This is dangerous. And what is the capitalist market solution? Hey, here's a piece of foam or a weight that you can put on your steering wheel so you could just keep driving dangerously. Sorry if anyone else gets killed, but at least you don't have to put your hands on the steering wheel for your 15-minute drive.
Next is the bypass of drunk driving, I guess. Some people, I had a buddy in college, I'd never heard of this device before, but a friend, he said in high school got busted for like DUI or something, maybe he was in college. And he had to put like a breathalyzer device to start his car for like however long, because it was a bit of a probationary period for him to drive. Imagine if some aftermarket company makes some way to get around that. It's for safety, you guys, it's for safety. Don't just try and go around it, but that's the way of the world right now. Last story, you guys, to wrap up the week. Maybe it'll be touching because it's about animals and their feelings, emotions, and anxieties. But did you know it was this kind of animal?
Memory and time. Lily, look at pictures. I felt sad. I want to feel sad. I want to feel mad. Body.
What happened to Lily?
Ouch. Ouch.
Lily had an ouch. She had a big ouch though. Big ouch.
Yo, wait, that bird, that parrot or something, one of those, I'm not a bird person, named Lily is talking through an iPad, or at least some kind of touchscreen system, to let everyone know what it is that she feels. Apparently, she feels bad because she lost her good friend, Lily, who died of cancer. Remember that part, because this means a lot when it comes to what Ellie is feeling. Because not only is her owner teaching her how to speak and let everyone know what she's thinking, but also doing it with the correct grammatical wording here. Let's watch that.
Past. Which happy is past? Which one is past?
I felt happy.
That's right. Which one is future?
I felt happy.
That's right. What's future?
I will feel happy.
That's right. Future is I will feel happy. What is present? Which one is that?
I feel happy.
Good girl.
E.
What? Amazing. B.
B.
Good job.
craziness. Jordan, jump in here because there's more, but I want to make sure your first thoughts. You ready to get a parrot yet? You want to teach him or her all of these things?
No, I've got a cat, and I think my cat would just kill a bird.
Teach the cat.
I don't think it's a good idea. No, my cat's she does her own thing. She runs the house. I just live in it. I always, whenever I see these videos of animals hitting buttons to correspond with words or messages, I'm always a little skeptical, but I'm starting to come around on it. Like, it's just, it's a Pavlovian thing, right? They're being rewarded by certain sounds. Like they can associate acts, functions, whatever with sounds. So it's like you can train them to do it, but I don't think we should undersell just how intelligent animals are and how I think a lot of people take that for granted or underestimate animals. There was a report a couple days ago that showed that dolphin mothers use baby speak when talking to their kids and their babies. And I thought that was pretty cool, despite hating dolphins and they are the worst animals on the planet. And we can set aside an hour for that later. But I just thought that was really funny and interesting. And I think people don't apply the same understanding or leniency or whatever when we're talking about language and how animals communicate with each other, because maybe it's hubris for the human species or something else, but we just don't afford them the same understanding of the complexity of their language that we have for ours.
The main thing I heard was that dolphins apparently are the worst creatures in existence, according to Jordan. We're gonna come back to that, but if you guys should look up the way dolphins sleep, and it's fascinating, bro. I was amazed. Look up the way dolphins sleep. It's amazing. Anyway,
upside down, right?
They go with like their pod of other dolphins. We're gonna get cut off, but they go with the pod of other dolphins and protect the one sleeping. It's amazing. They swim while I heard it on like a whale watching tour once. Anyways, thanks Jordan for being on the watch list today, despite the fact that everyone will hate you over that dolphin hate. And thank you guys for joining me as well. Look forward to seeing you again, Jordan, really soon. Also, you guys, it's Friday. Go check out the Young Turks. It's a pop power panel. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.